Okay.
Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. You're done?
Done. Hey guys, hope you guys are still doing well. Today we're going to go over your April 27th assignment. You just had last week to finish up your storybook. We haven't had daily assignments here for a while, so hopefully those storybooks went really well. But just to show you what I'm looking at, we're doing this moon phases. So we're going to start looking at how the moon cycles through these different phases that we see from Earth. So I've got a couple different tools that I'll be sharing with you to help you do this. The first thing that I want you guys to see is this image here to try and help you understand what's going on, because perspective is really important in understanding these. So what you need to understand is that we are here on Earth, and based on how the sun illuminates the moon, we will see a different shape of this. What you need to know about the phases of the moon is that the moon itself is always a physical sphere and it is always full. However, based on how the sun, the earth, and the moon are positioned, only portions of it are illuminated. So I don't want you guys to think that the moon is shrinking and getting larger. It is not. It's just an optical illusion of what we can see from Earth's perspective. So the words that you're going to need to be familiar with to understand these, first two terms I'm going to talk about are waxing and waning, and these will tell you where you are in the moon phases. If a phase is ever considered waxing, that means that it is adding light, or more light will be, or more of the moon will be visible than following night. And then if a phase is ever considered waning, less of the moon will be illuminated for us to see from Earth. Then the other words that you need to be aware of are all of these words that refer to different shapes, is how I think of it. So there's a new moon, which means that there is no visible part of the moon illuminated. And so that shape is just nothing. The opposite of that would be a full moon, where we can see, I don't want to say all of the moon, because all we can ever see at maximum is half. So I want you to think of, even though it's considered a full moon, we are only seeing half of it. So again, you need to think about this as a 3D space, and half of it is being illuminated. And then the other shape words are crescent and gibbous. Crescent is going to be just that little fingernail shape. So if you think of like a crescent wrench, or I think of croissants kind of have that shape, it's just going to be a little sliver. And then gibbous is going to be with that sliver missing. So it's larger than the quarters that you'll see, but it is missing that sliver. And then the last shape word is quarter, and that's where half of what we can see is illuminated, but again, in that 3D sense, that's referring to just a quarter of the moon. So you have to think about the back of the moon that we can't see. The other reason I like this image is it has the sun here, so it's showing you that the sun's light is shining from this direction, and so that is why that white space is always on that side of the screen. And so hopefully that perspective piece helps you there. So I want to show you real quick those words again, because you will be asked to name these based on their shape, so, or at least put them in order. So give me a second here, and I'm going to go over to the camera, which shut off. Okay, just to recap. So if you wanted to think about all the terms that we're going to use in the phases, because we're going to go over the 8 different phases that you'll see, there are words that I refer to as position words. So they're going to tell you where you are in the moon phases, if you're adding or losing light. And then there's shape words. So all of these down here. So I'm just going to go through a quick definition of these, in case while I was talking about it before they didn't quite make sense. Position words, if you ever see the word waxing in front of a phase, that means that the moon, the part that is illuminated, is getting larger. So we're adding light. And so at those portions of the phase, each night the moon will appear to be larger. Again, the moon isn't changing size, but during these waxing phases, more and more of the moon is illuminated from the sun. Then waning is the opposite. That means that we're losing light. And again, we're not actually changing shape. It's an optical illusion based on how much light is available. And so in these phases, the moon appears to be getting smaller. Then we have our shape words. New is going to be really no moon at all. So if you were to see something, it's going to be all blacked out. And this happens when the sun, I'm going to do my little drawing here. If I had the sun, and then the moon falls in a position where it is exactly between the earth and the sun, what is going to happen is only the back, I want to use my blue still, only the back half of this is going to be lit up. And so from the earth perspective, it is all dark. So that's how a new moon happens. Then full means that everything is illuminated. But again, full is a little bit of a misnomer because only half of the moon can be illuminated at one time based on our perspective. So really, this is only half of the full 3D moon, but we call it a full moon. Then quarter is going to be when 1/2 of what we can see is illuminated, but as I mentioned, from full moon, because we're only seeing half to begin with, 1/2 of a half is a quarter. So you will see either side of this. You'll either see this side darkened out or this side darkened out, but as long as it's that half shape, that half circle shape, that's considered a quarter. And then we have gibbous, which is when not quite half is taken away, but just the opposite kind of crescent, where you're just losing a sliver of the moon and the rest of it is illuminated. And then finally, crescent is where only that tiny sliver is illuminated. So if you keep all of these in mind, you keep track of if we're adding or losing light night after night, and then you keep track of all of your different shapes and what they mean, the 8 phases shouldn't be so bad. I will show you an image of those 8 phases, but what you will be asked to do is draw out and label these phases. So you will need to be able to recognize them. And the biggest thing is to be able to put them in order so that they make sense. I'm not so much concerned about if you have your left or right side illuminated, as long as you have all the wording in place. So let me show you what those phases look like. So before I showed you guys this image and it had everything labeled for you, but I also wanted to show you how it could be laid out just in this linear sort of path. These are the different phases that you will be asked to label. So I may give you this and I wouldn't give you any of the labeling underneath. I would just give you those images. But if you follow through this, if we have a new moon, that means that we don't see anything in the night sky. So the only option would be that we are adding light. And so that's how we get that waxing term put in front. And then the shape of it is that crescent. And if we move on, we no longer say waxing, but if you wanted to, I wouldn't count it wrong if you said that that was a waxing first quarter. But we know that we are gaining light, and we know that the shape is quarter. If we look at our next one, our shape is now a gibbous, because we've only lost that crescent shape, and we're still gaining light from our last one. Then we go to full moon, where it's all illuminated, and now our option is to move into our waning phases. And so we are going to start to lose light. And so this is a waning, and I look at the shape, that is more than a quarter. We only have lost that crescent shape, so that's our gibbous. Then again, if you wanted to say this was waning, you could, but it's our third quarter. And then finally, we have our waning crescent, and then the cycle would start over. So hopefully these make sense. Hopefully this helped. Your assignment will be to look through these phases and label them, and then in the future I will be asking you guys to be looking at our night sky and identifying what the moon phase is. As always, if you guys have any questions for me, the best way to reach me is on email, so make sure you're sending me those emails.
Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science. Do 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 science.